All right, hour two of the Sports Bash Live. Phil's out in Colorado, but a lot of Philly stuff happened over the weekend, catching everybody up. No better guy to do it with. Todd Zolecki, MLB.com, covers the Phillies, host of the Phillies Show podcast. It's Todd Zolecki, Jim Salisbury, Ruben Amaro. Todd Zolecki joins me right now on a wet and dreary day down the shores. We're getting ready for Memorial Day weekend. And he is on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. What's up, Todd? Good to see you, buddy.
Mike, what's going on, dude? How are you?
I'm doing all right. A little miserable down here today, but baseball brightens everybody's day, does it not? Especially a good baseball team. And all of a sudden, the Phillies have clicked the switch, flipped it on, and they're playing the best baseball maybe of the season for them, and they have the most wins in the National League. Who would have saw this coming, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's funny. About 2 weeks into the season, everybody said it was over. And
it's funny how that happens. You play one bad series. Since that Mets series, they have really taken off, and the Mets have not played well.
Exactly right. It's a 162-game season for a reason. And, you just sometimes I think in Philly, everybody kind of has a football mentality about the baseball season, and you forget that there are ebbs and flows. There are ups and downs. The Phillies are probably going to have a few more really bad stretches over the course of the season, but they have been playing, like you said, Mike, really, really, really well since they got swept in New York in late April.
Well, Todd, you mentioned a bad stretch could be coming, and it could happen soon or it could happen whenever, but that bad stretch could be tied to a bullpen, which is starting to come around, and then the blow they got on Sunday. A couple days later now, I think there was some reporting that they kicked the tires on David Robertson even before Alvarado. Where do you see this bullpen now? Is it an urgent thing, or are they still going to kind of wait and see and say, let's not get crazy about this?
Yeah, I think they're going to wait and see. I mean, right now, if you would make a trade for a high leverage reliever, first of all, there aren't that many really good high leverage relievers available because there's probably only 6, 7, 8 teams that have no chance to make the postseason. And, like the Rockies, the Pirates, so there's the price for a good high leverage reliever right now on May 21st would be insanely high. And so I think what the Phillies are going to try to do is they're going to try to move forward with what they have in the short term and see how everybody does. What you don't want to do is panic, trade, Justin Crawford and Eduardo Taiit, two of their top 100 prospects, for a high leverage reliever. And then all of a sudden, boom, an infielder goes down or an outfielder goes down or a catcher goes down and you're going, oh my gosh, we should have waited a little bit. So I think they're going to move forward with what they have. I think they are looking for relief help. I think that was always the plan. Every contending team always seems to find bullpen help before the trade deadline. I would expect them to do the same thing, but not at this moment.
I kind of agree. I don't think they have to panic and do anything, but is what they have good enough? When you look at this bullpen right now, it might be good enough to get them through a month, but how long can they push forward with what they currently have?
Yeah, for sure. And that's why the Phillies, Mark Feinsand from MLB.com, he reported that story on Monday night. You mentioned earlier that the Phillies had reached out to David Robertson. That was before the Alvarado suspension. So even in the Phillies' minds, they're going, okay, we probably need to upgrade here. Because if you think about it, even with Alvarado, before the suspension, you had Alvarado, you had Jordan Romano, who's been really good lately, but he really struggled early. You have a Ryan Kirkring, who's been a little bit better recently, but he's been inconsistent. And you have Matt Strum, who was an all-star last year. He started out the season a little slowly after having an abbreviated spring training. Then after that, you've got Jose Ruiz. You have Carlos Hernandez, who has trouble throwing strikes from appearance to appearance. You have Tanner Banks, who is the second lefty in the pen, but not really a high leverage guy right now. And you have Taijuan Walker. So is it good enough for right now? I think it's good enough for right now, but yeah, I think they know that they're going to need to do something at some point. They have some internal options that they might explore. Some guys in AAA, they converted a prospect, one of their top pitching prospects, Seth Johnson. They moved him to the bullpen recently. Then you look way down the road and maybe in the postseason, you can move somebody like Ranger Suarez into the bullpen, or even Christopher Sanchez into the bullpen, or maybe Mick Abel can move to the bullpen at some point later this season. There's different things that they can explore right now. But yeah, I definitely think at some point they're going to have to go outside.
All right, Todd Zolecki, MLB.com, host of the Phillies Show podcast. You just said, Mick Abel. He obviously pitched Sunday. You got a chance to see him. I think he exceeded everyone's expectations. Maybe not theirs. I mean, this guy was a first-round pick. I mean, I'm sure they wanted to see him pitch this well. But how did that start do anything for him? Did it change his outlook, future, season, trade value?
Well, yeah, I think you could look at it two ways. You could look at it like, man, if it's July 25th and the Phillies are desperate for a reliever, or again, like I said, maybe there's an injury that happens to a really key player. Now you have a guy in Mick Abel who's pitching really well in AAA. He came up and he pitched amazingly well on Sunday against the Pirates. Now maybe he could help you get somebody of significance before the trade deadline. Or maybe you could look at it like, man, maybe this guy could help us this season. And I mentioned him moving to the bullpen only because you never know what could happen. We've seen starting pitchers, young pitchers go into the bullpen for a short stretch. So maybe they go, you know what? We don't want to trade this guy because, man, now we're really thinking he could be really good for us. But maybe he could help us in the bullpen, the final month or two of the season, if he doesn't fit into the rotation plans, so at least he's opened up a couple doors for the Phillies. He could help you get some outside help, or maybe he could help you internally. I mean, the Phillies have been pretty lucky in terms of their starting pitching health. Aaron Nola is on the injured list right now with an ankle injury. But hey, if another guy goes down or two more guys go down, and that could definitely happen. You get a line drive off the shin, or somebody has a sore shoulder. You could use a guy like Mick Abel in the rotation.
You also have Andrew Painter, so there's like a line here of waiting. Hey, me next, then you. But you also have five guys already there, plus Walker, who will pitch tonight, by the way. He's in the Nola spot. And doing some research yesterday, I came across a story that you wrote at MLB.com back in April, where Dave Dombrowski basically said Painter is not a bullpen option. For the people who think that, hey, why not just throw him in the bullpen? He would not fit that. But do you think that he definitively fits into the rotation, meaning that someone is going?
Well, this is interesting. So, yeah, I would be absolutely floored if at some point during the regular season, Andrew Painter pitches in the bullpen because of what Dave Dombrowski said. He's a young guy. Dave Dombrowski thinks he could be the next Justin Verlander. Dave had Justin Verlander in Detroit when he was coming up. Andrew Painter's coming off Tommy John surgery. It's just something you don't want to mess with a guy like that. Now, maybe in the postseason, things are different. Is he definitely going to come up into the rotation? I believe so. I think there are stretches at some point this season where they could use a six-man rotation. You have Aaron Nola, who's pitched more innings than anybody in baseball over the last 5, 6, 7 years. You have Zach Wheeler, who's like third on that list over the last 5, 6, 7 years. You have Jesus Luzardo, who has been outstanding, but he's coming off an injury filled 2024. So you kind of want to watch his innings. You have Ranger Suarez, who struggled in the second half of last season. The Phillies kind of felt that he wore down, so they want to watch his innings. And so you have some guys in the rotation that could maybe benefit from a little bit extra rest late in the season. And so that's where I think a six-man rotation could come into play. And that's where I think Andrew Painter could potentially fit in. He could come in, give these guys an extra day here and there, and maybe
some of which don't like that, though, right?
Right. Zach Wheeler is definitely a guy that likes to pitch on regular rest, but I think he also they could maybe massage a little bit where he pitches on more regular rest than others. But I also think that Zach Wheeler understands that, hey, listen, we're trying to win a World Series. So if I have to suck it up and maybe pitch on an extra day of rest every once in a while to help out the other guys stay a little bit fresh in the postseason, he might be willing to do that. I would suspect he would be willing to do that.
All right, I know it's early, but everybody's thinking about the big picture here, and we're talking pitching. Todd Zolecki, MLB.com, covers the Phillies. He's the host of the Phillies Show podcast, which is really insightful with Todd Zolecki, Jim Salisbury, Ruben Amaro Jr. You got Wheeler, it appears. Do you think Luzardo is more of like Ranger Suarez, where he has a great first half? Are they worried about him fading out, or is he a legitimate top of the rotation year-long ace for you? Let's start with that.
I think he's a legitimate long-term ace for this team. He has shown a few years ago in Miami, I think he made over 30 starts. He was like 180 innings. He started against the Phillies in game 1 of the 2023 NL Wildcard Series. And so I think they look at him as somebody who can take the ball every 5-6 days. Whereas Ranger has, and listen, Luzardo had a back injury last year, right? So I'm not saying he's necessarily injury free, but Ranger seems to get dinged up every year with something. That's why he's just got back to the rotation recently, because he had another back injury. He's had arm issues over the past. I think they believe that Luzardo can be a little bit more of a workhorse type for him. But again, like I mentioned earlier, because he missed so much time last season, I think they would like to protect him as much as they possibly can. That doesn't mean pulling him out of the rotation or anything like that. But I think, again, that means giving him a few more days here and there. But he has been absolutely outstanding. And it's funny, you mentioned like Ruben Amaro and Salisbury. Like we were talking all offseason about and spring training about this guy is really good. And the players in that clubhouse, Mike, when I was in spring training in Clearwater, a lot of people mentioned, you guys are running it back and, you guys didn't do anything this offseason. They're like, do you know how good Jesus Luzardo is? Right. All the hitters on that team, all the pitchers in that team, they're like, do you guys realize how good this guy is when he's healthy? And then he adds a sweeper, and that's been a godsend for him. And you talk about the best pitchers in baseball this year. Zach Wheeler's one of the top 5, I would say, and Jesus Luzardo has been one of the top 5.
Yeah, and I don't know that the Phillies even thought they were getting this level of pitcher. Like, hey, it seemed like, hey, he's a good middle of the rotation. He has been every bit an ace with Zach Wheeler, those two guys. So I think if we're having this conversation on May 21st, Wheeler and Luzardo, they're your top 2 guys. Sanchez appears to be settling in at number 3. Do you see a scenario where Aaron Nola does not get a postseason start?
Boy, sure. I think it depends on how everybody's doing, of course. I mean, that's obvious. But yeah, I think, well, in a 7-game series, you're probably going to need 4 starters, right? So if Aaron Nola is throwing the ball competently, if he comes back and his ERA is in the 5s and the 6s and he continues to struggle throughout the season, yeah, then I think probably not. I think, the Phillies have shown in the past they're not afraid to pull a guy out of the rotation. Hey, Taijuan Walker was really good for them in 2023. I think he won like 16 games. He had an ERA in the mid-4s. He didn't sniff an inning in the postseason in 2023. So I think that's certainly possible, but they seem to think that once he gets past this ankle injury, that affected him in his last 2 starts. He's started to show signs of a turnaround before that, but we'll see. Long way to go. They would love to have Aaron Nola turn around. Obviously, he's got 5 years left on that deal. Yeah. But I think right now, yeah, if you had to put money on it, you'd say Wheeler, Luzardo, Sanchez are your top 3 starters. And who knows? Maybe Andrew Painter comes on and
he would be the follow-up guy. I mean, he comes up here and just for instance, he has an impact similar to what Skeens did for Pittsburgh last year. And he throws, he's 9-1 with an ERA in the low 2s. How do you say you're not getting a start in the playoffs if that's what he does? And then would Nola be a candidate to even pitch out of the bullpen? You mentioned Walker. He didn't get a sniff. He didn't even he didn't get an inning in those playoffs. Right. Would they just not even roster Nola? Do they look at him as a bullpen candidate? I think that's another interesting thing coming down the pipeline here.
Yeah, this will all be fascinating to see how this unfolds over the next few months. How does Painter fit? And I mean, listen, Dave Dombrowski has said this as well. He's like, he has to earn his promotion. I mean, so far he's pitched pretty well, but he has to earn his promotion. And there also has to be a need. I mean, obviously, you got an injury right now to Nola, like I mentioned earlier, they want to kind of protect some of these guys, maybe spread out the starts with some of their starting pitchers. So maybe they do that. Yeah, I don't know. It's a long way to go. I personally think that Aaron Nola can get it figured out. He's never been a high velo guy. He's a really good pitcher. He had 2 really good starts against the Diamondbacks and Cubs. They were 2 of the top 5 offenses in baseball at the time that he faced them, and he gave up 1 earned run in 13 innings. Now, the first 5 were not good. The last one was the worst start of his career, so I understand all that. I'm just saying I do think there's some time for him to figure it out, and I would like to see what he can do. If the ankle really did bother him, if he really did start to maybe change his mechanics, he mentioned his back started bothering him in that last start. I'd like to see what he can do healthy and see if he can get back on track. Because if he can get back on track, that is huge.
And just presents another logjam and another potential decision that the Phillies have to make. Let's quickly look at a couple of the other decisions that they might be pondering. Todd Zolecki, MLB.com. Are they happy? Happy, maybe not. Comfortable with center field right now? Are they okay, or is that something they're monitoring?
I think they're monitoring it. I think if Justin Crawford continues to play well, or continues to, picks things up, shows that he can stick in AAA and hit AAA pitching, and if there are some struggles at the big league level, if Marsh slides back downward or whatever, there's an injury, I think you can see Justin Crawford come up at some point. I really do believe that. Dave Dombrowski in spring training allowed for that possibility. He said at the time, we don't have any expectations that he's going to help us this year, but they started him in AAA. And to me, that says, they want to test him. They brought him to AAA, started him in AAA because they wanted to test him and see if he could be promoted at some point if there's need. So I think that's definitely a possibility. And depending on how things shake out with the bullpen, depending on the health of the roster, I could see them trying to make an upgrade in the outfield as well. I think that's definitely a possibility. This is a team that is trying to win the World Series right now. They would love to re-sign Kyle Schwarber. JT Realmuto is a free agent. I know offensively he hasn't, been tearing it up, but he's tremendous behind the plate still. The pitching staff loves throwing him. So they know that there's a window here, and they want to strike now. So I think if there's an opportunity to upgrade a particular position, I think they're going to try to do that to try to win a World Series this year.
That JT is going to be a tough one, man. They don't have a lot of catching in the system. He's getting older. That's going to be an interesting, conversation when the season's over about that deal, don't you think?
Absolutely. And here's why I think it's interesting is because he is so good behind the plate. And I'm not just talking about his arm and his pop time and whatnot. He is so good with these pitchers, and he prepares so well, and he calls such a good game. I had somebody tell me recently that the Phillies are so lucky to have JT Realmuto as a catcher just because of his impact on the pitching staff. So I know when he first came to Philly, he was, he put up these big numbers offensively as a catcher. And, he hasn't necessarily done that this year, but don't sell short the impact that he has on this pitching staff. And like you said, they don't have a lot of depth coming. Eduardo Taid is their top catching prospect, but he's really young and he needs a lot more time to develop in the minor leagues. So very interesting, no doubt.
By the way, Crawford is hitting .405 against lefties right now. For the people, he is left-handed. He is hitting .405 against lefties, .436 on base percentage against lefties. So Crawford, batting lefty, is hitting lefties. Are they okay? Is a Kepler-Wilson left field? Are they okay with that?
I think they're okay with it right now. Yeah, I think Kepler at times has been pretty good. Wilson has crushed left-handed pitching over his career. I think for right now it's good, but again, it's May 21st, so you have 2 months to go plus 10 days before the trade deadline. A lot can happen. They're going to learn a lot about Kepler. They're going to learn a lot about Weston Wilson, just like they're going to learn a lot more about Marsh and Rojas in center field over these next 2+ months. And that will kind of help inform their decisions on what they want to do. Last year they went out and they got Austin Hayes. He had a health issue and obviously that did not work out. But so
he's doing pretty well in Cincinnati right now.
He's doing great in Cincinnati. You really wonder what if that was the version of Austin Hayes that they got. If they would have got him last year, he would have been back this year, and you'd be looking at left field a whole lot differently, I think.
Yeah. Well, and it's weird because Kepler, is a left-handed hitter. He just seemed to be a weird fit from the start. By the way, for the people listening, Austin Hayes, 319, 6 homers, 364 on base, 582 slug, 496 OPS. I mean, he is having that's a little ballpark out there, but he is mashing right now. The last one I have for you, Todd, as we get ready to get out of here, which is you've been covering this team a long time. To see a leadoff hitter platoon, is that like bizarre, or is that just baseball in 2025?
I think it's probably baseball in 2025. I'm trying to think of the last time I can remember a platoon type of situation. But
that's what it is, right?
Yeah. I mean, it is. Against with a righty on the mound, Bryson Stott's going to lead off, and with a lefty on the mound, Trey Turner's going to lead off. And I'll be honest with you, I like it. I like this setup. I like the flexibility. I've talked with Trey Turner about this. He's like, as long as we know where we're going to hit and it's based off a particular matchup. So he's like, if I know against a lefty, I'm leading off, and then there's a righty tomorrow and I'm hitting second, I'm totally cool with that. Bryson Stott, I know a lot of people, including Ruben Amaro Jr. has told me, he's like, he really likes the idea of he wants Bryson Stott to get an opportunity to lead off every day, including against left-handed pitching. But there's also this balance, right? Because Bryson Stott has not hit lefties very well this season. Now, how are you going to hit lefties if you don't face them? That's a great argument. Eventually Charlie Manuel turned Chase Utley loose against lefties. He eventually turned Ryan Howard loose against lefties. But they also want to keep Edmundo Sosa going, and he's played very well in his opportunities against left-handed pitching. So you're trying to win that day's game. You're trying to win the division. You're trying to get to the playoffs. So you have this balance that Rob Thompson is trying to strike between developing a guy like Bryson Stott and trying to winning that night's game. And right now, I think it's important to win games. It's working. So as long as it's working, I personally would keep running with it.
All right, we'll see how that pans out for them, obviously. They're out in Colorado tonight and tomorrow. Then they're going to Sacramento to take on the Athletics. Todd Zolecki, the Philly Show podcast. You can check that out on all podcasting platforms. Jim Salisbury and Ruben Amaro Jr., along with Todd Zolecki, who was my guest here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. Hey, good to see you, man.
Good to see you, Mike. Thanks a lot.
You got it, man. Todd Zolecki, everybody, here on the Sports Bash as we take you through the 6 o'clock. Good to catch up with Todd. He does a great job. He's been on the Phillies beat for a while.